So with just 3 films, Greta Gerwig has already shown herself to be a filmmaker to be reckoned with, having won so many awards and even more nominations. But before I even went to go see her newest film, Barbie, I paid a visit to her previous work. So today, I'm going to rank all 3 Greta Gerwig directed films from the worst to the best. All of the films that I'm going to be talking about here today in this ranking are good films, actually. And once I show you guys what the last place is, what number 3 is, you'll see that this is a really great selection of films. But guys, remember, if you enjoy what you're seeing here today, I have done a lot of videos over the summer. I've reviewed franchises like Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible, Scream. I've done all that this year. You can check that out on my channel once this video is over. Also, something I wanted to add with this ranking before I start is that, yes, I know that Greta Gerwig also helped direct with Joe Swanberg a film called Nights and Weekends. I thought of including that film, but then I thought I would just keep this ranking to her solo directed films. Without further ado, let's get into our ranking. Coming in last place is the newest film, Barbie. But despite this film being the bottom of this list, it should not be ashamed of that whatsoever. This film has, of course, perfect casting. Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling are perfect as Barbie and Ken, respectively. Like I said in the review, they're a great comedic duo. There's a wide variety of comedy in this film where it goes for a lot of meta stuff where you actually get the company of Mattel in this movie in the real world. There's a lot of satire when these characters are thrown into the real world and them having to experience our world in contrast to this magical fantasy of Barbie Land. And there's just so much fun in this fish out of water scenario, and the comedy is also not afraid to go very silly. But with it going very silly, it never gets annoying. It always stays fresh, and it always manages to put a smile on your face. But just on top of that, the world that Greta Gerwig creates in Barbie Land is mesmerizing. It is full of such great production detail, and it's this great mix of plastic fakeness and reality. A lot of scenes playing out how someone would play with the toys. There's quite a bit of social commentary in this film. It seems to aim for one target audience, but then it manages to reach other people as well. Where as much as this is a film about Barbie, as much as this is a film for women and younger girls, Ken is actually a main character in this film, which really surprised me, and I really appreciated that Greta Gerwig is just a director that is able to make a film that, although targeting one target audience more than the others, she doesn't feel like she has to alienate other people. The messaging at times, even though it is saying something good, it can be a bit on the nose. There were many points where I felt like visuals should have been used instead of dialogue. A narrator that at times was fun, but a bit unnecessary at other times. Again, a lot of ideas thrown into this film, a lot of different levels of commentary where it feels a bit messy in spots. But probably the biggest reason why it's in last place, and more subjective of course, it doesn't quite reach me on the emotional levels that the top 2 films of this ranking do. But nevertheless, this film was a blast to watch in the theaters. I told you about that friend, this guy friend that refused to watch this film for a while, but then I finally convinced him, and even he appreciated it. So if you guys are on the fence about whether you should watch this film or not, just give it a try. Even if it doesn't seem like it's directly targeting you, you may find something that you'll really enjoy here. Our runner-up is Little Women, the 2019 adaptation. And let me just give you some perspective before I go too in-depth with this. I've never read Little Women. I've never seen any of the other previous adaptations of this IP. So me walking into this film, just watching it for Greta Gerwig, this was actually my first experience with the story. But this film is great. In contrast to what Barbie does, where that film is very extravagant, and it works for that film, this film is very much more a great exercise in simplicity, where a lot of scenes in this film can feel a bit thin, can feel a bit lightweight, but because you enjoy the world so much, because you enjoy this great cast, you don't mind. You want to be in this world. You want to spend more time with these characters with every scene. And it's a film that, despite having a more slow burn pace, the film never feels slow. I consistently found myself invested with this story. And of course, going back to the cast, some great actresses in here that work marvelously together. They have so much chemistry. The way they interact with each other, it feels exactly how you would picture sisters interacting. It's so much fun, yet at times being very emotionally resonant. And what really adds to this is the non-linear storytelling that Greta Gerwig experiments with this story, that, to my understanding, is the first time that a director has used a non-linear approach with telling the story of the March sisters. I really liked what Greta Gerwig did here, where the non-linear, it really plays with memories, these themes that she's explored before of growing up, moving on, our main character of Jo remembering the warmer spots of her childhood, and then now realizing that a lot of it seems to have just gone away, and now everything's very serious, kind of bleak. The structure of this film really adds a lot to the feeling of this movie. And just again, a lot of great production design here between the costumes and the houses and just even just the positioning of cameras. Greta Gerwig clearly has a lot of love for the source material, and you see that everywhere, where even the way she distinctions between time threads, the past and the present. The past is always full of more warm colors, while the present, more darker, is more cool colors, a lot more blues. But the cherry on top of all of this is that at times the film is actually pretty meta. It's very self-aware, and as Saoirse Ronan's Jo says in the movie,
it's just about our little life.
So?
Well, who will be interested in a story of domestic struggles and joys? It doesn't have any real importance, does it?
It touches on a lot of common human threads. There's nothing incredible happening in this movie, but just a lot of scenarios, a lot of sequences with these people that you grow to really care about, and they grow to be very relatable. Yes, at times the film is a bit familiar, and this type of storytelling with this time period is going to be done again, but just how all the different pieces from the acting to the directing all come together, it makes Greta Gerwig's Little Women not feel dull, and it feels like a retelling worth exploring. But coming in at number 1 is Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig's solo directorial debut. And let me just say, this isn't about Lady Bird Johnson. It's something else. It's about this teenager, Lady Bird McPherson, that is going through her last year of high school and just going through all the pains of a coming-of-age story and finding her place in the world. I feel like it's the most personal story that Greta Gerwig has told thus far. It's a film that feels very real. There's no melodrama here. Everything that happens between the characters, it feels like how actual people would react in different scenarios. And the weirdest thing about this film is that it does have an odd structure to how the story is told, but it feels very realistic at the same time, where the structure, how the flow of time works in here, is that scenes will start either mid-conversation or mid something happening between the characters. And then sometimes the scene just kind of cuts off at the end and you don't get to see the ending. It's a strange thing that you have to get used to with this film, but it really fits with real life. And as we've grown up, as we've gotten older, there's a lot of moments in our lives that just stick out to us randomly. It almost feels like going into someone's memories and just them recalling the important pieces of their lives. It's a film filled with some of the most real characters you'll ever see in a film. Everyone in this film manages to be a character that you've either known at some point in your life or that you've been at some point in your life. And of course, the most interesting character in this film is Lady Bird, played by Saoirse Ronan, who was also great in Little Women, but here I feel like this is still the performance of her career. It's this very layered performance where a lot of times this character is actually kind of unlikable. She's kind of getting on your nerves and just thinking, why are we spending so much time with this character? But then also having another side to her, character that you gradually warm up to, her going on this powerful arc of finding more meaning in her life. But this film also has Timothée Chalamet in such a great performance. When I saw him in this film, I immediately thought that, okay, what I'm about to mention is something that a studio shouldn't do. If a studio ever had the gall to ever remake the TV show Gilmore Girls, at least have the common decency to cast Timothée Chalamet as Jess. In this movie, he felt so much like Jess. It was crazy. But going back to the actual film, there's actually an important line of dialogue. It's this character that tells Lady Bird that aren't attention and love pretty much the same thing? That if you're willing to give so much attention to something, that you actually kind of feel for it. Watching the other films of this ranking, I realized that that character might as well have been talking to Greta Gerwig herself. There's nothing too extravagant about this film. There aren't shots that are just so massive, but just all the small attention that she pays to a lot of shots in this film, that she's able to find subtle ways of showing the beauty of Sacramento, California, especially in her use of the sun and a lot of different colors in shots. That while it's a film that there's nothing incredible, there's nothing too ambitious about it, that it actually manages to have a greater beauty to it because it's just pure. It's a film that while Greta Gerwig has said that a lot of the things in the film have literally not happened to her, she just throws so much personality into the screen. Clearly is this film that is her expressing a lot of her emotions, a lot of her journey, growing up, coming of age, the same as our main character did. And just all that combined, it's one of my favorite A24 films that you can watch this film and remember your own struggles going through the same stage of life that this main character does. It's the film of the three that hit me on the deepest level. Greta Gerwig's solo directorial debut is still her best film to date, so it comes in at number 1. Guys, if you enjoy what you see here today, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Guys, comment down below. Have you seen all of these films? And if so, what is your ranking of all of them? Make sure to check out my other reviews, like I mentioned, all those different franchise reviews I did. I also have my own reviews for Barbenheimer. You can check out both my reviews for Oppenheimer and Barbie on this channel. Guys, make sure to hit the like button, and I'll see you guys next time.